Rated Ice Time. So listen responsibly.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Right, it's been a long time since I met you. Without a strong song to rap to. Think about. I'm not gonna rap tonight, y'all. How y'all doing tonight? I'm Carl Price. Welcome to Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I am, of course, your host tonight. Still lurking and waiting for DJ Ice to come back from Mars. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. We've got an interesting discussion tonight. You saw the title. I'm going to put that title back up there so you guys can see it. It is Not Just Tulsa. There Were More. Sponsored by Ice Entertainment Television and here on Conscious Fever Radio. Of course, I am Carl Price, your host. Yes, there were more. There were many more massacres that, I guess, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the truth is the truth, that the government basically kept from us. The educational system here in America kept from us. So there was a lot of talk today about the Tulsa massacre, and we've been leading up to basically talking about the Tulsa massacre because of the 100th anniversary. Quite candidly, if anybody deserves reparations, it's those people. There has to be a way. There has to be a way that we can come together as lawyers, black, white, yellow, brown, green, whatever, and seek some reparations for the Greenwood community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It just seems to be something that a court should not say the statute of limitations has expired. But in any case, we're going to talk about the fact that Tulsa, Oklahoma isn't the only race massacre that you were never taught in high school. There are actually many, many others. So I want to talk with you all today about that. If you'll listen here on Conscious Speed Radio, Ice Entertainment Television. Remember, you can listen to us on Facebook until they cut us off. Facebook has been tripping lately, so we're going to trip right back and tell you to go to www.consciousfever.com. You can watch us there, raw, uncut. You can also watch us on the Conscious Fever YouTube channel. You can also watch us on Fever_show on our Twitter handle. But let's talk about this. Let's start to talk about this. We talk about the Tulsa massacre, and everybody's talking about it, and there's so much discussion about it. But let's not forget that that was not the only one. So I'm going to go through some that maybe you did not know, but actually I would tell you in probably about nearly 100 cities, there were massacres, just not on the level of what we know to be Philadelphia, I think back in the 80s, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the early 1900s. So I'm going to talk about tonight, some of those, and hopefully you all will be enlightened, and maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll learn something, because Tulsa is actually not the only one. So here we go. There's a photo. This photo is from the Daily Record, the only African-American newspaper in Wilmington, North Carolina. That place was set ablaze as the Wilmington insurrection of 1898 began. And this photo is from the New Hanover County Public Library in Interesting. But there are a lot of photos out there like this where they're capturing what took place at that time, and that was in Wilmington, Delaware. But with President Biden commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa race massacre Tuesday of this week, many Americans are learning for the first time about the nation's long history of racist rampage, particularly during, but not limited to, the period from the 1870s to the 1920s. Considered by many a nadir in the fight for black civil rights. This new awareness has prompted calls from many, including musician and activist Common, to learn more about these incidents. On Monday, he posted to his social media a map of part of the United States with locations and dates of other massacres against black people. And on it says, pick a massacre and research it. And that's what it read. And if you can see on this photo that I'm posting now, it's very interesting because it's actually an interactive photo. So if you go to the WashingtonPost.com, where this story is from, if you go to the Washington Post, what you're going to find is this graphic of black massacres that were created, that was actually put up by Common. And on this post, that map is actually interactive. So you can, for instance, hit East St. Louis, and it'll take you to a site that tells you all about the East St. Louis massacre. Interesting stuff. So, and I'm sure a lot of you all just didn't know that. But if you want to learn more about these massacres, that's one way to do it. The motto at the Washington Post, Retropolis, is the past rediscovered, and perhaps nowhere is that more apparent than in the change in understanding of these incidents. In the past, they often were misreported as quote-unquote race riots, which we all know was a smoke screen that obscured honest writing of history. If you want to read accurate accounts, for instance, better than Wikipedia, of many of these incidents that occurred during this bleak period, there are just a few that I'm going to cover tonight that may just spark some interest. So take a look at this photo from 1873, right? This is an illustration. This was an illustration in Harper's Weekly on May 10th, 1873. What it shows is black people gathering, dead and wounded, from a Colfax massacre in Louisiana. So there's a lot of cities that we're going to cover, but let's talk about the one in Louisiana. It was in 1873. This was a direct attack on black men getting the right to vote during Reconstruction. After whites contested the result of the 1872 election, black men and a mostly black state militia holed up around the parish courthouse to protect the local government. On Easter Sunday, April 13, 1873, they were surrounded by a white mob that set the courthouse on fire and shot anyone who emerged. It is estimated that 62 to 81 African Americans were killed. Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't know why I was thinking Delaware. Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. This incident is better described as a successful coup d'etat. I think that's how you pronounce that. But this one in Wilmington, North Carolina has been described as a coup in which white supremacists overthrew the results of a local election. In the process, they killed dozens of black people and burned down much of Wilmington's prosperous black neighborhood. Just like Tulsa, right? Black families ran into the woods to hide while others were forced to leave by train and never ever to return. Never ever to return, right? Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. in 1919. For weeks, police and the press, including the Washington Post, whipped up hysteria over an alleged quote-unquote Negro fiend attacking white women. Things boiled over, and on July 19, 1919, with white posses hunting black men, the violence lasted for nearly a week before it was extinguished by a long summer rain. This is one of the few quote-unquote race riots in which more white people may have been killed by blacks defending themselves. Many were soldiers returning home from World War I. More whites than blacks were murdered by the white mobs. Good stuff, y'all. Stick around.
COVID-19 has changed how we express our faith and gather to worship.
We all want to get back to how we pray,
How we congregate, how we lift our voices in praise. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to spreading the word without spreading concern.
before we can safely come together, we need the facts.
As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
The corporation, the government, rebel pride, and I'm loving it. So true to the covenant in the harshest conditions. Physicians still cutting it, gotta gash it through mutton it. Still licking and button it. Coat my life how I like so you can zip it and button it. We out. R to the top, what the sun is the blackness. If you heard something different, your information's inaccurate. We beasts in the game because we monsters in practice. And they said do it big, so you boy went Galactus.
All right, welcome back here on Conscious Fever, Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I am Carl Price, your host here on Conscious Fever Radio. We're talking about not just Tulsa tonight. Let's talk about Elaine, Arkansas in 1919. There were dozens of racist attacks and massacres across the country in the Red Summer of 1919. If you don't know about the Red Summer of 1919, take a moment to check it out. One of the worst was in Elaine, Arkansas, in which at least 200 black farmers and their families were slaughtered. The farmers had recently unionized and were planning to bypass the unfair sharecropping system. Gives you something to think about, huh? Wow. How about, that was Elaine, Arkansas. How about Florida? 1920, it was the presidential election during which white women voted for the first time. But for black Americans, it was more of the same. Jim Crow laws and disenfranchisement in this city in Florida. When local black men and women attempted to vote, white mobs responded by burning a black church and killing at least 6 people. Some say the death toll was more like 60. Some survivors claim bodies were dumped in a massive grave, as in Tulsa. The city officials have made no attempt to investigate the claim. The city officials apologized and installed a memorial plaque in 2020. It was the worst instance of election day violence in American history. Before we talk about Tulsa, I'm going to take another quick break here because I want y'all to listen to this group. Just going to take a little gospel break from my friends from Africa across the water. Check them out.
kwerazi orangolwa manyi kweweka kwene size olimukulu mubulimbela katondo afowamani razi
All right, Carl Price here on Conscious Fever Radio, Ice Entertainment Television. Thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome back. We're talking about not just Tulsa. There were many more. Not just Tulsa, there were many more. We're talking about the race riots. So let's talk about Tulsa. Let's get back to talking about Tulsa. All of you all are familiar with this photo. This is the photo of Greenwood, Oklahoma, which is that area in Tulsa where all of this happened. And many of us, all know the story now. But for those of you who still don't, let's talk about it. The Greenwood neighborhood is seen in ruins in that photo after a mob's rampage during the race massacre in Tulsa on June 1st, 1921. That was a photo from Reuters. On May 31st, 1921, you know the story, a white mob descended on Black Wall Street, a prosperous black neighborhood in Tulsa. Over the next 2 days, they murdered more than 300 people, burned down 40 city blocks, and left 10,000 black residents homeless. A mass grave that may contain the remains of the victims has recently been discovered. Survivors have been petitioning for reparations for decades, and as recently as last week, they were doing that. But again, just because we're talking about this show, it just didn't really stop in. It really just didn't stop in Oklahoma. How about Rosewood? Many of y'all are familiar with Rosewood. Maria Monroe in this photo holds a photo taken at her great great uncle Eli Walden's funeral as she and her daughter Natasha Twiggs, both descendants of Rosewood survivors, look over old photos and documents in their home in West Palm Beach, Florida. December 19th, 2019, this photo was taken. But in Rosewood, in 1923, Rosewood was a successful black town in the Florida pine woods until it was burned to the ground by a white mob. Seeking revenge for the supposed assault of a white woman. At least 6 people were killed, perhaps more. Survivors waded through swamps in their night clothes to escape. A 1994 law allowed descendants of Rosewood residents to attend state colleges tuition-free, the first example of a legislative body in the United States giving reparations to African Americans. Right there, only in Rosewood. How about Omaha, Nebraska? Because if you thought that was it, there's more. In 1891, a mob lynched Joe Cole, a black worker in Omaha, Nebraska, suspected of attacking a white woman from South Omaha. Approximately 10,000 white people, mostly ethnic immigrants from South Omaha, reportedly swarmed the courthouse, setting it on fire. They took Cole from his jail cell, beating and then lynching him. Reportedly 6,000 people visited Cole's corpse during a public exhibition at which pieces of the lynching rope were sold as souvenirs. This was a period when even officially sanctioned executions, such as hangings, were regularly conducted in public. Let's look at Chicago. It happened in Chicago too. Bet you guys didn't know that, right? It happened in Chicago. This is a photo that was taken during the race riot and actually doing, I don't want to call it a race riot. I'm just as bad as some of the members of the press. But in Chicago, the Chicago race riot of 1919 grew out of tensions on the South Side, where Irish descendants and African Americans competed for jobs at the stockyards, and where both were crowded into substandard housing. The Irish descendants had been in the city longer and were organized around athletic and political clubs. The Chicago race riot, as it was called, of 1919 grew out of tensions on the South Side, where Irish descendants and African Americans always competed for these jobs and substandard housing. What's interesting about the Chicago race riot, if you all called it, was the fact that there were a lot of immigrants in the United States at the time. So a lot of these white men that were doing this, and mostly white men, were actually immigrants. During that time, a young black Chicagoan, his name was Eugene Williams, paddled a raft near a Southside lake, the south side of Lake Michigan beach into white territory, and drowned after being hit by a rock thrown by a young white man. Witnesses pointed out the killer to a policeman, who refused to make an arrest. An indignant black mob attacked the officer. Violence broke out across the city. White mobs, many of them organized around Irish athletic clubs, began pulling black people off trolley cars, attacking black businesses, and beating victims. Having learned from the East St. Louis riot, the city closed down the street car system, but the rioting continued. A total of 23 black people and 15 white people were killed. Right? How about October 29th, 1919, Chicago 29th, 1919. I am supposed to have a photo, but I don't. But 2 men is alleged to have robbed and stabbed A.F. Thompson before escaping without him getting a good look. Thompson was able to stumble to a nearby house and get help. Word quickly spread about the crime and that the attackers were 2 black men. On October 31st, 1919, an enraged and armed white mob made up of hundreds of the town people. Actually, let me back up. What this actually is, and I apologize for that, y'all. This is Corbin, Kentucky. For all of us here in Kentucky that did know about this, I want you to check out what happened in Corbin, Kentucky. It was October 31st, 1919, when this mob was trying to get some redress for this man that had been killed. So the white mob, the white mob, which was made up of hundreds of Corbin's townspeople, organized and went house to house, get this y'all, rounding up black residents. When they felt that all of the African Americans of the town had been gathered, the mob marched a group of approximately 200 men and women and children to the train station and herded them onto cramped rail cars. The train departed with its human cargo, and they were sent south to the town of Knoxville, Tennessee. They swore at us and said, "By God, we are going to run all Negroes out of this town tonight," said a longtime black Corbin resident, John Turner, in a signed affidavit about the incident. So, interesting stuff, y'all. Interesting stuff. I see somebody commented. I don't know if I can get the comment. I should be able to see the comment. Don't know why I can't see your comment. Maybe because don't have the comments turned on. Let me turn the comments on. I'm going to take a look at some of these comments, and I appreciate you all commenting tonight. Let's take a look at some of the comments. This first one is, let's see, Phyllis, didn't know about DC. Yes, Phyllis, that's the problem with mass media, right? They don't tell you everything. They just refuse to tell you everything. And this is not, again, some part of that history that has been hidden from us. Valerie Bell, thanks for the history lesson. Valerie, you are very much welcome. Very, very, very much welcome. I'm gonna do something here, y'all. I'm gonna do something that I have been intending to do. And I'm gonna say thank y'all for watching and thanks for the comments. But it's something I've been intended to do. I want y'all to take a listen to this. I'm just kind of in a gospel mood tonight. Can't listen to gospel music here because I'm here instead of at home. But I went to a concert a couple of years ago, and that was when the song "Delivered Me" had been released. And y'all may have heard the group if you're from the Louisville area. Joe Level with One Purpose. All right. So I'm going to take another quick break, and I want y'all to take a listen to this song. This is Joe Level's One Purpose performing "Deliver Me." Check it out.
Sometimes the heart realm, the mind realm, the soul realm doesn't quite get the message because life has left a hole to molestation, low self-esteem, abuse. But today I'm going to tell somebody that the God we serve has
All right, Carl Price here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. Once again, thanks for joining us. I was at that concert. I love that. I really, 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 really love that particular performance at that concert. That's Joe Level and One Purpose, local here in Louisville and doing things nationwide. We're talking about the hidden history of the black massacres, right? Not just Tulsa. There were many, many more. And I'm going to take a few more comments before I get out of here. Let me just adjust some stuff here. Here's another comment. So what was politically happening in 1919 more than one attack in different states? In fact, Phyllis, there were multiple attacks. I mean, there were not just more than one. There were many attacks in 1919. 1919 was the year of the massacre. In fact, I think 1919 is why it is referred to as the Red Summer. I think if my history is correct, that's why it's referred to as the Red Summer. That's what was going on in 1919. I mean, well, two things were happening. Let's just keep it in perspective here, right? White America, some white America, particularly in the South, was extremely upset, and actually further in the North. And a lot of the fighting was done among a lot of the white immigrants with the African Americans. Right? So you had that going on, but you also had, legal segregation. So, you put those two together and you've got a lot of tension. That's the best way that I can explain it, but that's what was going on. But 1919 was really, really bad if you were an African American or Black American here in the United States. In any case, but yeah, so, it goes without saying that there is a lot of part of our history as Black Americans that has not been told. And when it has been told, it's been told in a manner that is not really truthful. Jesse Jackson said something many, many years ago, I think back in the 90s. He said, record what's going on. He said, write your own history. He said, otherwise somebody else is going to write it for you. And if they write it for you, you're not going to appreciate what they might be writing, right? So, and that's what this is all about. I mean, when the history was written, it was written in terms of race riots, as if, both parties were really participating. And in some of what you just heard, some of them, there were some back and forth, right? Blacks were fighting just as bad or just as much as the whites were fighting, right? But they were really not riots; they were really massacres, because they were generally white mobs going after Black people, and sometimes they would just gather their guns, just like they did in Greenwood, Oklahoma, and Tulsa, or in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, and they would just grab all their homies and they would go out and just kill Black people. In Corbin, Kentucky, they made every Black person leave the city of Corbin. That's right here in Kentucky. Everybody Black had to leave. Put them all on a train and say, go and never come back because you touched a white woman. Because it's alleged that you touched a white woman. Just a bit of history. Bit of history. But in any case, listen, I have done my job here tonight. I know it's a little bit sooner than normal, but I've got to get out of here because it's Thursday night, just a few hours before Friday. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this brief history lesson. But listen, remember what I said about the photo. I'm going to go back to this photo. I want y'all to remember this photo. Go on the Washington Post website. Find this photo. Common is the author of this, from what I understand, he posted this. And what you're able to do is to interact with the history of the massacres. You can see it there. Detroit in 1943. You really need to read the one about Detroit because that was really a battle between blue collar workers. New York in 1863. We talked about Washington. 1985 during our era. Philadelphia. East St. Louis in 1917. Springfield, Illinois in 1908. Of course, Tulsa in 1921. Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1874. Clinton, Arkansas, of course, Rosewood, St. Bernard Parish, New Orleans in 1866. You really need to check that one out. We talked about the one in Colfax, but there's, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, y'all. Believe it or not, this is really just the tip of the iceberg of those cities that are on that map. I mean, this stuff was happening everywhere in almost every little city. This was going on. So when you listen to the reports about Tulsa, take it in if you didn't know, because there was a lot more. Right? It's just like when they talk about roaches and mice, right? You see one, there's a lot more coming around, right? You hear about one massacre, there's a lot more. The reason I chose to actually talk about this tonight is because I had lunch with a buddy of mine, a black man, and we were near a TV that was on CNN, and CNN was talking about the massacre in Tulsa, and the anniversary, the 100th, the centennial, et cetera, and he said, "What is that?" And I was just floored. I don't look, y'all. I don't believe that everybody. I don't expect. Let me just say that I believe, but I don't expect everybody should really know. Everybody black should really know your black history, but he grew up in another part of town, so he really asked me about all the details of Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. And I was just beside myself because the point I was making to him that he never got was that, when you recognize that there are institutions, even supported by the government, that are content with denying the truth, history is supposed to be the truth. And, inherently, the word history, in and of itself, is supposed to be the truth. But some say that, America really hasn't lied to anybody. It just, withheld the truth. But I was just floored that he didn't know. And I don't expect every black person to know about these things like Tulsa and the massacres and Rosewood and all of that in Corbin. But I am shocked that he was shocked that this had taken place in America. And actually, he argued with me for a very long time, saying that it's okay that he didn't know. I don't know. But it really brings up a really interesting point. This is the last point I'm going to make, and then I'm going to get out of here. It brings up a very interesting point because I don't know if y'all have heard about the discussion around the commission that Donald Trump's administration started, 1776 commission. Have y'all heard of that? Okay, the 1776 commission was created to counter the 1619 project that you can read about on the New York Times, at the New York Times. And the 1619 project is a project that is it prides itself behind the fact that it is telling the truth about slavery. And it's called the 1619 project because that's the date they've identified that slavery started and Africans were brought over here to America. But then there's this 1776 commission, which is supposed to be this patriot. I don't know what patriot means anymore because there was allegedly patriots that were a part of the insurrection in Washington on January the 6th. I'm not sure what a patriot is, but in any case, but that's this 1776 commission was established to counter the truth. Okay, I say that, but they say that they were created to counter the lies that have been told through the production of the 1619 project. And really, the 1776 commission is just another outfit that wants to continue to fabricate the truth and perpetuate a lie about history here in America. Anyway, listen, this is my time here. I am Carl Price. I have been your host here on Conscious Fever, here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I've got to get out of here, and as I do, I'm going to send you all out with a bang. And so I'll be back next week with a surprise guest. A surprise guest, somebody we've never had before, somebody that everybody wants to talk to. We're going to talk to him next week, the week before my birthday. Anyway, I'm Carl Price. This has been Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I'll see you next week.
And we are back with more Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price Esquire.
This is Tatiana, and you are watching Conscious Fever.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Louisville's finest, DJ Ice.
Welcome back to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Hold it, Juliet 6, 552. Okay, 117 live and wave.
Hey, before I go, if you're not doing anything this weekend, June 6th, check out the 75th anniversary Jubilee celebration. We're going back into church at Oak Grove Missionary Baptist Church. We say, welcome back home. We are coming back in-person service for the first time in almost about 15 months or so. Social distance will be strictly enforced. So join us at 4033 Vermont Avenue here in Louisville, Kentucky, as we come back to church to celebrate church.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. It will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is. Then I go to my brother. And I say, brother, help me please. But he wind up knocking me back down on the knee. Oh, there've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able, Father, to carry on. And it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it is, yes it is, yes it is. Said I know that a change is gonna come one day. I know a change